Lovely listeners of the Ape and Bird NFT show. Welcome to the last ever episode 22 of the Ape and Bird show. No, Steve, we were just talking off air and sort of the lineup of some of the topics that I've provided you today. If there was ever a show to get us cancelled, it's going to be this one. So I hope we can sort of toe the line and make it through. And I'm very glad that we weren't recording 5 minutes ago.
This is your general warning to me not to say the rude stuff that I said in the pre-chat.
Yeah, so just to give our listeners an idea, I would say every third show that I send Steve some notes, I generally put in "don't get us cancelled" in brackets on certain talking points. So we are still very brand and sponsor friendly. We don't have any sponsors yet, but we will continue to say this for another 80 episodes until we get a sponsor. But welcome back. We had Friendly Jameson in the driver's seat last week. Did you catch any of the show? Where was the jealousy level? Was there a jealousy level?
Yeah, you've been cheating on me. You've had Friendly Jameson. You've got a gold ape friend that isn't me. So I'm really pissed off now. But I, as I told you, I listened to the start and I was just so bored. I had to stop listening. No, I got busy.
Shout out to Friendly Jameson.
No, I do plan. It is on my watch list on YouTube. So in the next couple of days, I'll be able to finish that one off. But I've heard very good reception. I saw a lot of the Twitter talk about the show. So it seems to have done well. How did you like not having me to annoy you for a whole week?
It was a different experience. It sort of felt... It felt like I was sort of on this romantic date after sort of speaking to someone on like an online dating app for 12 months. And it was the first time we'd met in real life. So it was sort of like, yeah, it was an interesting experience. So shout out to Jameson for joining us.
But you had met Jameson the week before, right? On the
Gold Coast. His wife, Renee, kind of got in the way in Gold Coast. So shout out, Renee, if you're listening, but...
I'm not going anywhere with it. It's not me that's going to get us cancelled here this week.
This is a very, very loose opening, I've got to say.
All right, let's move on to news then. Okay. And what a segue. Let's talk about recent sales. What have we had? Punk hoodie. Oh, let me get the page up. We've had... Now... All of these are Yuga assets, of course. Trippy Bored Ape sold for 1.01 million. These are all US dollars as well. So add an extra 50% for all our Australian listeners. I believe they sold to some type of company that's quite small. Doesn't have a huge Twitter following. We also had a Mega Mutant sale, which used, if I remember correctly, this person owned 2 Mega Mutants, used them both to get some collateral, and then bought this third one. So I'm not sure how they're planning to pay this back in the next couple of months. Then we had a zombie punk sell for 1.3 million, and that Mega Mutant sold for 1.3 as well. And of course, the big sale last week, or was it this week, was the hoodie punk.
It was last week.
Million. 3,300 ETH, right?
Yes, we touched on that very briefly on last week's show, but we also had another hoodie punk sale, not an ape punk, just about 5 hours ago for 300K as well. So it seems like the hoodies are warming up, and obviously next thing would be Moonbird hoodies. They would be obviously the next cab off the rank. But yeah, some really big sales. It sort of feels like some of those blue chip, higher, more scarce NFTs have been gaining traction the last couple of weeks, Steve. I don't know if that's what sort of some of the sentiment that you're seeing as well. But shout out to the Mega Mutant too. I mean, when we talk about aesthetically pleasing NFTs, similar to the oddities, I'd really have the mutants, the Mega Mutants up there. They're just brilliant looking, those things.
Let's not talk about art. We will get in trouble. But you do notice all these higher sales, you get assets. I sleep very well at night knowing that bag is in a treasure, locked away, and I can just leave it for maybe the next 5-10 years, and they're going to be continuing to work. The community's already there, and we're just going to keep bringing in more and more people. And if NFTs, look, we've been saying it for a long time, if they do become a thing, I think holding Yuga assets is the play that's going to work out best long term.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to fault that. I still think punks probably don't have as much sort of external dependencies. Punks, for me, I think if I was to be airdropped 100,000 US right now, would I buy a punk or an ape? It would be a hard one. I still have such strong affiliation for the apes, but I don't know. From a perspective of sleeping better at night, I would say it's probably a punk for me at this stage.
Yeah, it's your time frame as well. So for me, if it was 10 years, I think a punk. If it's the next 2 or 3, I think the apes will outperform. But yeah, you don't have to worry. It's holding a crypto punk. You're not worrying about nothing needs to be done now. It's just holding an asset that should appreciate in value. But yeah, let's talk. Sorry,
I was going to say it's sort of like holding a Fidenza, right, or one of these sort of grail pieces of art. Unless Snowfro or Tyler Hobbs goes out and decides to be a serial killer, you would think that those. It's a very odd start to this show, isn't it? I think I've actually missed
all
you.
Over the place. We need to get back into the flow.
Yeah. But no, I think, the phrase I always sort of like to hear is that external dependencies, right? You're not worried about the execution risk of the art just exists. And that's sort of where I think we frame crypto punks.
Yeah. Going back to Tyler Hobbs, my only concern, and it's mostly how many new projects they're going to create over the years. And we did see QQL come out last week, I believe. Did you talk about it with Jameson?
We did, yeah.
Yeah. So that's still only, he's got 1,000 Fidenzas. I think there's 1,000 of these. You would assume he's going to drop a project maybe every 2-3 years. So yeah, you always worry about that. But of course, an artist wants to create art. So it's not on them. It's just a weird thing to always be thinking about when you're buying these items. But yeah, if I did get the 100K, it would be a Fidenza before a punk, by the way.
Yeah, right. Okay. Very interesting. So what's up next on the docket?
Well, you have just announced tickets, pre-sale tickets are up for NFT Fest. And I saw you tweet the speaker list, and that's why I was very angry with you, because you've got a gold ape speaking who's not me. Headlining, I'm guessing, is Jimmy.ETH, who you met at VCon last year. Or was it this year, actually?
This year.
Time flies. Yeah, so talk about some of the speakers. And I know you haven't looked at ticket sales and it just launched. But yeah, tell us about NFT Fest and just, go over everything. Shill.
Easy done. No, it's not going to be a long shill, but it has been a pretty big week for NFT Fest so far. Yesterday, we announced our first wave of speakers. This is probably around 40 to 50% of our total speakers, so there's plenty more to come. I do have a few people that are concerned in my DMs that are wanting to get up on stage and talk on a variety of topics, which is completely understandable. So speaker list and agenda has not been fully finalized yet, far from it. So rest assured, we're still working through that. But I also would say, Steve, we pride ourselves on being a highly curated event. So we are not NFT NYC, where we're going to have 1,500 speakers and doing 10-minute sessions on, topics that are not adding value to the audience. Our goal is to have, the audience and the attendees of NFT Fest walk away with 3 to 5 new things that they hadn't learnt before, and maybe have 3 to 5 new connections or discover speakers they'd never heard of before as well. So we want to have a really strong educational focus along with some parties and networking events as well. But back to the speakers. So as I mentioned yesterday, first sort of wave of around 50 speakers. Jimmy.ETH is one of our headliners. Jimmy will be doing a virtual session, but we'll have it as a fireside chat. So we'll actually have a moderator and a host there at the Alex Theatre in St Kilda asking Jimmy questions. There'll be most likely opportunity for Q&A there as well. We have Zeneca as well, Giant Swan, Ridley Plummer, who we often speak about from Tennis Australia on this show, Steve. We have Kyle Walker from Upside DAO. That's sort of an investment DAO that's investing in a lot of early stage Web3 startups based out of Cremorne here in Melbourne. I heard Kyle speak in Gold Coast, and he was brilliant. So looking forward to having Kyle. I'll give you another sort of more not obscure name, but someone that I've only recently sort of discovered. His name is Daniel Tauhor. I'm sorry, Daniel, if I pronounce your last name incorrectly, but DAOmaster Labs, or DAOmaster Dan is what he goes by. He actually works for MotorDAO. And he's a gigabrain, in my opinion, the way I've had a few chats with him, and he's going to be running some workshops on DAOs and tokenomics and all those type of stuff. So looking forward to Daniel. Jamie Schmidt from BFF, Joan Westenberg. Many people will be familiar with Joan. Prolific shit poster, but also another gigabrain.
Front face in Moonbirds at the moment.
Yes, front birds, she's called them. Shout out to the front birds and Joan. But now, really looking forward to having Joan. Joan's a tremendous thinker in the Web3 space as well. So looking forward to having Joan IRL in real life. We have got all the sports covered, Steve. We will have AFL. I mentioned Ridley from tennis. We have Cricket Australia. We have Jeremy Loliga, the commissioner from the NBL. And we have the NRL. It was a little bit of alpha for you, but we believe the NRL might be popping down to Melbourne to talk about their upcoming Web3 strategy as well. So really looking forward to having the NRL potentially involved with NFT Fest 2022.
And the NBL just released their NFT project the other day, so that'll be interesting to hear from Jeremy.
Yeah, absolutely. Joni Pirovic, one of the best digital asset lawyers in not only globally, but I should say not only in Australia, but globally. Zeneca, for those that are familiar with Zeneca, Zeneca is probably a 10% chance of being here, I would say, in Australia. He is Australian, for those that don't know, but he's going to be back here, but most likely December. So he said if he's not here for IRL version, he will definitely be doing a virtual session. We've got a few people from VC land that are degens as well on the side. So looking forward to sort of having Reinventure and Airtree represented. Anthony Sassano. So we're going to have, not traditionally an NFT guy, but obviously is a huge educator on the Ethereum ecosystem. We're going to have Anthony sort of talk a little bit to the merge and how that, how he's seeing things, because we speak about this quite often, Steve, around sort of, Ethereum moving to proof of stake now and the implications of brands and sort of it being ESG friendly. So I think it'll be insightful to hear Anthony's perspective. We've also got Jake Denny from Mycelium, Jameson, Chris Smith from Business and Games. So look, I'm waffling on a little bit now, but I think it's a really strong opening lineup. And obviously, as I said off the top, this is really 40 to 50% of our total speakers. So, music NFTs we will have covered too. There's some really good chats going on with some people that are very prolific in the music NFT world. And I did forget to mention off the top, probably there's no one more prolific in music NFTs at the moment than Cooper Trooper. So Cooper Turley, for those that know Coop. He's putting in a lot of money into music NFTs and backing a lot of sort of startups in that area. So I'm personally really looking forward to Coop's session. So tickets.
When does this month-long NFT Fest start? There's a lot of people. How do you fit this many speakers into a 2-day event?
Yeah, so we have 3 stages in the theatre. So we're going to have, those stages will be rolling topics, rolling agendas. Obviously we're going to have plenty of lawyers there that are going to be fleshing out things like the CC0 drama versus IP rights, but also educating, potential Australian founders and current founders of like what they need to actually understand before they launch a project, right? I'm sure you went through a lot of this stuff yourself last year, Steve, and there's a lot of complexity around this, right? So to get educated, in that realm is a really good thing. But yeah, we have 3 stages. They'll be most likely sort of 30-minute sessions. We like to keep them moving the way that we run our events. We think that sometimes they can drag on otherwise. Probably similar to what some people think of our podcast, but shout out to our listeners. But in other news,
you said listeners, listener.
No, I'm telling you, we are starting to get a bit of cut through. I'm getting stopped on the street when I'm ordering a coffee. But we put on pre-release tickets, or we put on sale pre-release tickets today. So those that signed up to our database to have the first shot at securing a ticket, that they went on sale about 3 hours ago. So we've had a strong start to those people taking up their opportunity, but they only have a 24-hour window from midday tomorrow, being on Friday, the 7th of October. Tickets will go on sale to the general public. There's no point hiding the costs. They are $200 plus GST, or I should say $220 inclusive. 50% of that is actually going back, of the ticket sale price is going back to the speakers and artists that help put on the event. So we've been very explicit in saying we are a community-led event. We've obviously run 2 events previously and think that we've got a few runs on the board. We're not just doing this from a pure extraction perspective of running a conference. So we're actually donating that back, because I'm sure you've done talks before, Steve, including the one at March for us with Blockchain Australia, where if you're traveling from interstate, there are costs involved with that. There's costs to giving up your time as well. So we want to recognize people that are helping us put on this event, the artists, the speakers, and a handful of volunteers. So we'll be donating 50% of those ticket sales directly back, and evenly as well, which I think is a really cool thing when you think about someone like Jimmy.ETH or Coop, or they're quite notable people in the space, but they are willing to come to the table. Same with Jamie Schmidt. And they're just happy to get the same amount of money as every other person that's getting on the lineup. And to me, that's a really strong indication of what type of event we'll be putting on. So we hope that, we hope people will buy a ticket, support the event, support the speakers and artists. And, I have no doubt that anyone buys a ticket is going to leave with, a really satisfactory event and a lot of education and a lot of fun.
100%. And that $220 is less than minting any NFT recently.
Well,
so
yeah, I worked it out this morning. What is 0.11 ETH? So
that is value for the education you will get. So the utility attached is more than worth it. But we had some people on Twitter this week asking, how could you not have a second gold 8 there? And the truth is, you couldn't afford me. So no, I had booked my first family holiday in the past year and a bit. So I will be on the Gold Coast during that. But it sounds like such an incredible event. And I'm going to have to figure out a way. You are recording it, right? And
we are. Yeah.
So I'll be definitely watching all of those back.
And we should say too, because we know we have a lot of NF teams holders that listen to the Ape and Bird show. We will have representation from NF teams, even if it's not Steve. We'll find a way to make sure that happens, because I think it's a project that certainly should have a spot on the agenda.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm just trying to convince either Tim or Alan to get over their nerves to get on stage. So we'll have someone there.
I'm assuming Tim is T-Bar?
Yes.
Okay, I'll say no more. I'm in a DM discussion with him at the moment.
just be nice and gentle.
Okay.
I hear you went to an event last night.
I did. This is a very quick shout out I wanted to give to Pamela and Georgie Hubbard from the Sisterhood Sisterhood Club. I hope I got that right. Sisterhood Club. They put on an event predominantly for women in Web3 or people that were, but they invited me to come along. There was Kevin, Kevfi from the Bread Brothers, and also who just announced he'll be joining the MetaKey. I see Kev at all these
really?
Web3 events. So I saw Kev there. There was probably about 5 other males and maybe about 60 females. And I just really, really enjoyed the event. It was a high-quality panel with Catherine, goes by the name of STEM Queen on Twitter. Also, Liza Boston, I hope I'm getting the names right because I'm doing this off the top of my head, and Lisa Tay. And Lisa will be actually one of our speakers at NFT Fest, but I would dare say that many of the other females that were on the panel will get involved with NFT Fest as well. But I just wanted to give them a quick shout out. I think they're doing really good things, and just thank them for the invite, and just had a really excellent evening. And they were all up there, without me even saying a word. They were saying, all right, ladies of the audience, go to NFT Fest. They were putting it up there and saying, go and immerse yourself. So I just wanted to reciprocate and say thank you for the event and thank you for the shout out. So that's that.
Awesome. So now another thing, we must have at least 2 or 3 listeners, because you were dropped something into your ETH wallet the other day. Let's talk about that. You mentioned it on the show a while ago.
I nearly forgot about this. So I think we mentioned, Steve, in many episodes previously that gregoakford.ETH had been snapped up by an opportunist around the Moonbirds mint when I was getting a little bit of love on Twitter and getting a fair few retweets from bigger accounts. And someone slid into my DMs and was essentially trying to make me pay for my .eth name. And I just ignored that person. I actually don't know who that person is. And then mysteriously, it turned up in one of my multiple wallets, I think about, 12 or 24 hours after last week's show. And I did mention it to Jameson on the show. I think he'd heard the story before, but we were speaking about ENS domains in general. And here it is. It airdrops or it gets transferred to one of my wallets. And I actually don't know who transferred it to me, but I'm assuming it's probably one of our listeners from this show. So if you are out there,
trace the wallet.
I actually haven't.
When
we get onto the next segment, I will actually bring it back up. But I did not. I remember at the time I was looking, I think, at Rainbow Wallet in a read-only fashion, and I saw it there, and then I didn't spend any time tracing it. But it wasn't a sort of doxed OpenSea account or anything like that that I could make sense of.
XBT onto it immediately.
I think so. And Zach's a big listener of the show. So, yeah, if you could get onto that, Zach, that would be excellent. But, yeah, thank you to whoever did that. That was it was one of the more sort of weird moments for me, because I just thought, here we are, and someone's actually gone and someone actually paid for it. They put an offer in for it.
What did it sell for?
I think 0.05.
Okay. So you're worth a little bit, $50 to $100.
Yeah, which I think, they've probably paid overs, but thank you for that.
So now, anyone wanting to send any horrible NFTs that they were going to burn, send them to gregoakford.ETH instead of the burn address.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to create problems for myself here, aren't I? So. Yes, but thank you again for whoever did that. We will have to hunt them down.
Yes, I left that gap for you to move on to the next one.
All right. Well, I'm still on OpenSea trying to find it. we're working very smoothly.
I'll ask myself the question.
We're working very smoothly. We are going to
We're
get
only
onto
22 episodes in. We're experts.
We're going to get onto Renga. And also Renga's website costs. So there was a few tweets going around, a few messages here and there earlier in the week, Steve, over the weekend, that supposedly Renga had spent $700,000 US on their website. They obviously had quite a strong pump as well.
How much better is the art looking?
the art is looking really good. It's sort of looking like, Mutants were horrible at 3 ETH, but when they pumped to 10, the art just popped, So
Now, in saying that, the Renga art is nice, and I love. So personally, I like the colors, the art, meh. But the more I've seen of it, the more I do like. But yeah, it was mentioned that Renga had paid 700K for their website. I then did see a Discord screenshot of one of the guys saying, no, that was a joke or something along those lines. I went and had a look at the website. It's a fairly basic website with some parallax scrolling. If you were to get that remade, $5,000, $10,000. But I do know that their smart contract was done via WeKnew. And apparently I believe their black boxes contract is visible, but their main contract is still hidden. Apparently there's something special in this contract that WeKnew did. So I'm guessing the entire package of the smart contract, the website, I'm sure there's going to be a linkage to 10KFT and so on. I can see that being 700K because during this whole early bull market, that was a figure from about 600 to 1 mil was a figure that was floated around for doing complete projects like this. So after dropping NFTs, there was a project that came to us and said, oh, look, we've been quoted 600K for a smart contract and basic website. Is that okay? I said, no, I'll do it for 300K. But they were already too far down the rabbit hole there. And they did end up paying well overs for a smart contract. And now, as time goes on, you can get a smart contract. Well, you can copy and paste, really, but you could get a team to do a smart contract for maybe $5,000, even less probably. So, yeah, I can see him spending 700K for the full package to make sure it's completely legit, but it is still very much on the high side. Personally, of course, we've got Matt doing our smart contracts website. I initially hired a guy. We're going to go with another company for the new website, but my budget there is $50,000 for a complete website. But yeah, it was interesting to see prices. And early on, I was quoted when I didn't know how to do anything with the smart contract. I think it was 40 to 80 ETH to do the smart contract. So really great that all of these prices have come down and now it's very easy for people to create. But yeah, that was the Renga story of the week.
Yes. Tell us, though, while we're on sort of NFTs, you've been sort of not MIA, but essentially very, very head down with building NFTs. Have you got any updates, general updates for us in regards to sort of how things are tracking?
Yeah, so we just finished the IMX course. So we had, I guess, you say partnered, but we were part of their very first mentoring course. So this is Immutable X, which is a layer 2. And we just completed a pitch. So at the end of this, I think it was an 8 to 10 week course. We had to pitch in front of investors. So from my point of view, I didn't even have a pitch deck because I hadn't had thoughts of raising any funding. I thought I'll just keep raising from the community so I can give all the value back to the community. But over this 8-week period, it's sort of started thinking about, well, VC can signal a lot of good things as well. So I took that pitch seriously, and that took a lot of work. But it's good that that's finished now, but now we've got the pitch and I can refine it. I knew I was going to be fairly average on the first ever pitch. I just got feedback today, so I'll have to go over that and see where I can improve. But it's looking more likely that I'll start pitching and see if we can get some funding so we can guarantee the success of NFTs going forward. There was meant to be big news last week because we released our 0% marketplace. So that meant 0% market fees, 0% royalties. We've got the jersey drop coming up soon, and that's going to be 0% forever. We've seen a lot about pseudo swap and fees and so on in the space. So I thought I'd tackle that head on and just get ahead of it. Eventually, we would like to have just everything on our own website. And then therefore, once we go with an app, it'll just be so easy to have sales all on that one spot. But yeah, I've just been working on players nonstop. We're hoping to have them finished in the next 2 months. And then we're, of course, working on our next meetup. So Oz Open, we're going to have another meetup there. We'll have more details in our Discord pretty soon. Hoping to get between 30 and 50 people to that event. But yeah, just continuing working. And I just needed to concentrate last week. That's why you had Friendly Jameson on instead of this beautiful face.
Of course. And it sounds like January with the tennis is going to be the opportunity maybe for the first ever live in-person ape and bird recording.
Oh, you're not invited. Sorry.
What, I got to buy more NFTs.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point. We'll have to make sure that happens.
Yeah.
It is funny that we've spent so many hours talking and we've met for probably a combined 4 hours of our lives.
Yes, which is probably overs with what most people are doing.
NFT
right?
space, yeah.
You know, this is one of the new phenomenons of Web3 in my mind. Is we are moving from the world of meeting IRL and then extending those relationships digitally to a digital first meeting, and then extending it to IRL on a less frequent basis. And that's why I think a lot of these like NFT parties and things like that and networking events pop so much, because you're taking your digital interactions and extending them to IRL, which is a fascinating phenomena in my opinion.
It really is. Now, your favorite celebrity, Kim K, has just been fined. Let's hear about it, and let's hear why you love her so much.
I thought this was newsworthy, especially when you think about. So we should actually say, for those that are not in the know, Kim Kardashian was fined 1.26 million USD for a paid crypto ad. So this is probably a bit of a signaling thing from sort of the SEC. It's obviously American based. We've got listeners mainly in Australia, but we do have some American listeners too. But it's just an interesting one to think that, we always talk about the wild, wild west, right, of what the space that we're in. And, you've got to be careful, right? I think that's sort of the message. And even it's funny, I had a conversation earlier today, and a friend of mine that, I would classify as a bit of a mentor said, there was a project I was looking at maybe to get involved in, said, you need to actually be careful that you're not come under the umbrella of like a crypto influencer or like a finfluencer or whatever these terminologies are. And I don't even think about that stuff, right? Like, I'm very particular with what I say anyway, in terms of being fully doxed and wanting to have some sort of reputation that's got some credibility in the space. But it's very easy, just even when we're having banter, right, in this sort of environment, Steve, where you just have to be careful. And I certainly wouldn't put both of us in a high risk category. And, who are we to a degree when you think about, the accounts that have really, really, really big followings. But you and I have seen a lot of stuff over the last 18 to 24 months in the NFT space of, pump and dumps and organized sort of promotions and all this type of stuff. So, I just thought it was an interesting one, just to bring up and to say that, sometimes we think no one's watching, like the first probably 20 episodes of our show. But, you hit episode 21, you get Friendly Jameson on, and then it starts to pop. But no, look, I've taken that from a serious topic and just thrown cold water on it. But I thought it was just an interesting thing to bring up and sort of bring to people's attention. And it is going to be interesting to see whether, some of the likes of some of the NFT influencers that have done some shady stuff over the last 12 to 18 months, whether there will be any blowback in that regard.
Yeah, it's been a while since you've graced us with your long speech about not financial advice.
It might be time. No, we always do say, Steve. Sometimes we've missed it, but this show is for educational and information purposes only. And anything you hear on this show is not financial advice. It's actually not advice for anything, really. So
exactly. So on the topic, though, we have seen the OpenSea employee. I haven't heard much about that case, but he was arrested when he was front running.
Nate?
Yeah, Nate. Was it Nate Chaston? I can't remember. I don't want to throw out names.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he was front running because he knew what was going to go up on OpenSea. But look, as you said, we see it with the Finfluencer crowd. We see it with the NFT crowd. In my prior life, in the sports betting space, you saw it all the time. Now, flouting laws. Well, the thing is, there are no concrete laws. And I think Zeneca had something where you can't just say ad and promo and that's enough. It's just you hope there is some sort of ethic code, but people aren't going to follow that. So in a lot of cases, you do need specific laws to be put out there front and center, and it will show you what you can and can't say in regards to hype-in projects or whatever, and what the consequences will be. So for someone like Kim, I believe she got paid $250K for the tweet. I believe it was Emacs. I remember there were a lot of influencers at the time posting about Emacs ETH. It has gone down 99% since then. It was a clear pump and dump, but I'm guessing Kim even had no idea she even posted it because it would have been one of her employees running that promotion. But yeah, good to see a fine. It's going to do nothing to Kim K's bank balance. But hopefully we get some more, from all governments, some laws that say what you can and can't do in the space.
Yeah, and look, I sort of hesitated to bring up like the next part, but I'll bring it up anyway. Is that when I was getting into the space, I only bought my first crypto in middle of 2020, but I had definitely been across the happenings of Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I just hadn't made the leap, right? And it wasn't because I thought it was a fad or it was, this, that, or the other. But I remember on getting sort of involved in crypto Twitter in early 2021, and you probably remember a coin called SafeMoon, Steve, and that there was people that I'd followed on Twitter, say 10 years ago, in like almost just in that sort of professional development crowd or sort of self-development crowd. Some of them can be quite shady business people, and I'm not going to name any names, but I was seeing them, and obviously the Twitter algorithm was starting to show me more and more crypto stuff. And then I had a few friends that, I don't know how deep they were in the crypto space, but they're like, SafeMoon is the future and this and that. And obviously, as I'm saying this, I'm saying it a story, and please do not touch that. And this is nothing to do with financial advice, but I'm bringing this example up to say I almost fell for it myself, because I had these people that I had followed for a few years, and I wouldn't say they were the most trusted people I'd followed, but I felt like they had a little bit of credibility. And you just knew, right? You could just see through their tweets, even though I still nearly fell for it, that it was no doubt it was just this paid shield. And, the way that they were talking about it would just be like, to the moon. And, like I know we see all this meme stuff on sort of NFT Twitter, crypto Twitter, but it's very, very easy to be susceptible to that stuff, especially when you haven't been in the space for a while.
Exactly.
And when you're in a bull market too, and you just see everything else is going up, it's just like these organized pumps, and it's quite sickening, to be honest. And I think that it actually puts the space back a long, long way, and it makes our job as legitimate people that want to be in the space for the next decade much more difficult, because you're having to defend things like that, or maybe not defend them, but you're having to cop it on the chin about those type of scams. Yeah.
The other issue as well is exchanges allowing that. So most new people are going to be onboarded via an exchange. It should also be in their hands on what they put on the exchange up for sale. So yeah, that's another issue in itself there.
Yeah, and you do have obviously many exchanges that are a little bit more conservative. You've got obviously the more ones that will list any old coin, or at least used to list any old coin. But, you know, a lot of people always, not always, but there's people that complain about some of the bigger crypto exchanges, both globally and here locally in Australia. And it's like, why aren't you listing this coin or that coin? You move too slow, you do this. But, you know, the other side of the coin is they're doing their due diligence, right? And they're trying to avoid having these scam coins listed. So, yeah, it's all about trade-offs, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. And now your second favorite celebrity, Gary V, who I just learned is coming to Australia in November. And when I heard that, I thought it was an NFT Fest thing, but it isn't. But he's just released the Veefriends teaming up with Macy's and Toys R Us. I know you're all over this. You probably ordered the whole collection. So let us know about what Gary V's doing with his toys.
Well, I thought there was a text message from you to say, I'm got too big of an ego to order anything Veefriends cuddly toys, but my kids really want them. So can you put it on your credit card, and you're in their Discord, and then send it up to me and I'll pay for postage. So that was the real story. No, look, Veefriends, Jameson and I had a segue into Veefriends.
Look, I've got a lucky llama already.
Steve is, for those that are listening to the recording and not the video, the audio only, Steve is pulling stuff off his shelves in the background here and showing us a llama. But Gary's done a deal with, Veefriends with Macy's and Toys R Us. These are sort of cute, cuddly toys, similar.
There's vinyl as well.
Right. Is there? So you've done your
you've
done your research more than I have. But if you go to Veefriends Twitter, you'll see there's a little video there. This is pretty much an extension of what I said last week, where Jameson and I got onto Veefriends. Jameson took a little bit of a pot shot at Series 1 drawing, and I said, I think that's the first time we've heard a pot shot of Series 1 drawing. Maybe you've had a pot shot previously, Steve. I don't know, but I said the Series 2. To me, the evolution of the characters was really well done. And, I was struggling even as a Series 1 holder to see it. But when Series 2 dropped and you got a free, for every Series 1 you got a free Series 2, these are now cute sort of like cartoon characters that you can just see are going to be in shows, in, kid shows, Netflix shows, all the rest of it, right? I couldn't see it in Series 1. I can see it in Series 2. And if you look at the video on Veefriends Twitter now, you can just sort of see where this whole thing is going. So there was nothing that I wanted to sort of highlight other than to say, this is where Gary is taking his intellectual property. Now, what does that equate back to holders long term? That is a question that not only Veefriends holders ask, but just about any NFT project. And I think, Gary has been on the record to say that he considers them sort of more like the trading cards. So if Veefriends does go on to be, quite a significant IP brand in the coming years and decades, will that equate to someone wanting to have one of the 40, because there's 40 characters, a quantity of 40 of every one of the 270 odd characters, right? And they're at different rarities. It's a hard question to answer, right? And I think it'll probably be seasonal in the sense of how basketball and trading cards and Pokemon cards can run real hot for a year or two and then drop off and then run real hot. That's probably the way I see things going, but I could be very wrong. And then I think the utility side of Veefriends is obviously going to be pretty strong too, knowing that Gary can add value to holders at any given time and any given point.
Yeah, there's always the disconnect between, look, you're not going to watch these cartoons. The toys aren't really for adults, yet adults are the ones holding the NFTs. Like, it is the dream that these kids eventually grow up on Veefriends, make their money, and then you're like, well, I have the original, buy it off me for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, it's a tough one. I think the initial thoughts of NFTs and all these projects were, if you're holding an NFT and we build out the business, you're going to own a part of the business, or at least get some revenue from it somehow. So it's going to be interesting to see how all these companies that get built, like Moonbirds, Veefriends, NFTs, can drive revenue, dividends, or whatever back to the initial holders.
Yeah, agreed. And I do think, though, this is also sort of like you've gone through these cycles in crypto, Steve, but the psychology when we're deep in the bear now, or we're not even that deep, we're only a few months in, but it's funny how when price is going up only, right, we think that
you
trajectory
don't think about that.
Yeah, we think that trajectory is happening forever, but it sort of works the other way around as well. Like we just think like it's just going to keep dropping. In my opinion, I am still thinking that NFTs, particularly these bigger projects and the ones that go on to be culturally relevant and culturally significant, are going to still attract quite a high price. And the reason that I believe that is I do think the newer generations are going to continue to skew their discretionary spends into digital assets, because the digital assets can then foster physical goods, right? Where it's hard to do it the other way around. If you're buying, maybe you buy a Lambo and real Lambo and you get the Ether Lambo as well. I don't know. But my thesis is I do think that people will, if we're on a spectrum of people spending 20% of their, discretionary spend on digital goods at the moment, I think that number comes towards, 50% or more, over the coming years and decades for many people. And I do believe it's going to be something that, if people have got to spare 20 grand, 10 grand, whatever it is, and they want a certain NFT because it resonates with me. And don't forget all the stuff and the infrastructure that's being built out where we're going to be able to actually showcase our NFTs, in everyday life very, very easily across all the digital platforms that we play on. So I still think that's sort of the critical sort of factor in my mind, is, what type of value and what type of percentage are people spending on digital goods versus physical goods with their discretionary spend.
Yep, 100%. Yep. And look, we've seen the last craze with Pokemon cards going crazy again, early basketball, baseball cards. So, yeah, in 10, 20 years, if Veefriends or any of these NFT projects are these massive companies, you would assume the original NFTs are going to hold a lot of value.
So would you like one other story that's sort of Gary related? Because this one's out of the box.
I love my Gary stories.
I don't think you've heard this one. So you mentioned Gary is coming out, and he is. And I actually tried to buy a ticket yesterday to his Melbourne show. So he's coming out, I think it's the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, or maybe it's the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So he's doing Sydney, Brisbane, and Melbourne. It's during Melbourne Cup Week, horse racing. And I thought, I'll go along to the Melbourne show. And I went to buy a ticket. There was issues. I couldn't buy it, so I still didn't get it last night. I tried again last night. I'm sure they'll figure it out. But I'm actually seeing Gary, but in a much more intimate setting. I've been invited by someone who works in Gary's sort of ecosystem at the VaynerMedia squad. And I got an invite from her last Friday, so I'm very, very appreciative of that. So there's it's called an intimate conversation with Gary. I think it's on the Wednesday up in Sydney. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm sure it'll be a little bit like when I got to meet him in 2019. He was doing an Empathy Wines tour with Vino Mofo here in Melbourne. But let me give you the serendipity of the backstory of how I got this invitation. So I was in Sydney in July, about mid-July, and I was walking along Bondi Beach in the morning. It was freezing cold, and I had one of my Veefriends hoodies on, which had only arrived because I'd only been back in Australia for like a week or two. So it was one of the first times I'm wearing my Veefriends hoodie, and I'm walking along Bondi Beach, and this woman with a baby strapped to her, right, like newborn, is walking at me and sort of like almost like pointing at me. And I'm thinking, holy shit, what have I done? Like I sort of did a little bit of a look over my shoulder because I thought, I don't know what I've done here. But she's like making a beeline at me, and I don't realize I'm in a Veefriends hoodie at the moment. So she comes across and she's like, hey, do you own Veefriends? And then I sort of clicked. My brain went, oh, yeah, I'm wearing a Veefriends hoodie. I said, yeah, I do actually. How about yourself? And she was actually on the verge of, and I think she's worked for Gary for before at VaynerMedia. And she said, yeah, I'm about to head up the Australian office of VaynerMedia out of Sydney. I'm just on maternity leave at the moment. So we got chatting about, NFT Fest, NFTs in general. Obviously, I'd just come back from VCon. So we connected with each other on LinkedIn, etc. But she actually took a photo of me.
LinkedIn.
Your favorite platform. But she took a photo of me with the Veefriends hoodie and texted to Gary immediately. And then I got a screenshot back. So he was like, wild times, this random guy in Bondi, the other side of the world, is wearing a Veefriends hoodie. So had I put a different hoodie on that morning, I would not be going to this Gary event. And so, yeah, shout out to Amy. It was a very serendipity. Oh my God, I can't speak. I'm just going to say serendipity played out. There we go. But anyway, that's my story.
Beautiful. So are you still going for the dinner as well? I think were tickets $6,000 or something like that?
Look, I think it's a promote. I don't know who the promoter is, but I did see that there was a number
Dead Diamond Society has something to do with it as well.
Do they? Okay, yeah. I don't know the backstory on that, but I would go to the Melbourne event, but really looking forward to this Sydney event. So I will let the listeners know how that goes afterwards.
Looking forward to that. All right, we're 50 minutes in. We've got one more real topic to talk about. So you didn't know about this, but Azubala, which is pretty much Jenkins the valet, it became a huge project where Neil Strauss wrote a book. I think I've got a Neil Strauss book, The Game, behind me somewhere. So he wrote a book about all these Bored Apes. This project was doing really well. They had a parent company called Tally Labs. They raised $12 million. The next step was to create their avatars for their new world that they're creating. And I think the world's called Azubala. And these creatures, or Bala, or whatever it was, they released the art earlier in the week, or maybe over the weekend. And the response was swift. It was just, look, I don't know, just go to Twitter and find these. They're everywhere. But the art, to say the least, was poor. Things did not work, did not go with the brand, and the Twitter community spoke really loudly, really quickly. Now, to the team's credit, they dealt with it amazing. They straight away got on a Twitter Spaces, and they just sat there. I listened in for a good hour where community members were just blasting them, and they did not say anything negative. They just took in the information, accepted that they had made a mistake, and were saying, look, we'll rectify it. And they've since come out with more tweets, more articles, and so on. This project has a lot of goodwill as well. So as long as they can fix this, I think they'll be okay. But it was a horrendous reveal. And the bigger question, and what would worry me, I don't own any NFTs in this collection, but I do like Jenkins and the whole story they're trying to tell. But to have this much funding and then not to have someone looking over the project, or someone in their team that felt confident enough to say, this ain't it, sort of thing, because these images would have gone through a lot of people's hands, and they would have seen them. And for them to release something this bad, it was as bad as Fiverr art. And I think they've now admitted that. Is scary, especially for a company that's raised so much money as well. So on my point of view is, we've got a lot of these companies that are raising. So you've got Utes, they raised $9 million, Tally Labs, $12 million. We can all say they're mid-tier or low-tier projects at the moment. What we're seeing, because it's so early in this space, is all these projects, NFT included, trying to figure shit out. I can see eventually that what needs to be done to compete against all these big boys now is take the teams and combine them. So the Jenkins guys, they're fantastic at storytelling. The Utes guys are fantastic at FOMO building and marketing. Me, I can get shit done and have a product roadmap idea, whereas I'm poor at storytelling and marketing. So eventually I can see a couple of projects that did okay and then petered out, getting together, and that team will be the next big thing that takes on Yuga and and Moonbirds and so on. But yeah, we're at the stage now where everyone's just trying everything. But yeah, finding that combination of all three is still very difficult. I should do a shout out. If you're a great marketer or a great storyteller, just come to our Discord. I'm looking for you people to join NF teams because that's our next step. We have to do what Jenkins did and what Utes did to really help build NF teams. But it was such an interesting look at what can happen and how to deal with a crisis over the weekend as well.
Steve, the burning question is, on a scale of Kevin from Pixelmon to 10, how bad was the art?
It was worse than Kevin. Kevin is a piece of art. Kevin one day will be in the Louvre. But the rest of the Pixelmon art was really bad. But you have seen that they've released new art recently and a company bought them out. But the art, it was clear they had two different people working on the actual character and the clothing, and no one from the storytelling side explaining what the characters should be doing and what their life is like. It was horrendous. And then, of course, there were other 3D issues with the art. So this was going to be a 3D character. The problem is now they've also said, we're going to find new artists. We're going to do it right. We're going to get community feedback. But to do it right, to onboard a new artist, explain what's doing, get 3D traits and everything done, if they're working their ass off and spending a shitload of money, at least 6 months at a minimum to get something out there. So this is a huge block in their roadmap that they've got to now figure out again. But I don't know how much money was spent on that, but it was not enough. And but again, from a marketing perspective, they blew it out of the water because everyone was talking about it on the weekend. And everyone was saying, surely this is a joke and a marketing tactic, and you're going to reveal the real 3D characters now. And they had to publicly say, no, we really thought this was good. So there was a lot of fun. And the memes and all that coming out now are fantastic. But they'll, of course, regroup. Like I said before, they've got a lot of credit and a lot of social goodwill. So that they should be okay as long as their next at-bat is as good as what they had created beforehand as well.
So I'm going to throw a little question to you unannounced. It's not on our agenda, and I can start and buy you a little bit of time. But I want to know, we're talking about some examples of bad art. What is an NFT project that sort of, launched either 2021, 2022 that may not be on the radar of people, but you just still genuinely like the art? Because I've got one that comes to mind. Like, it doesn't have to have a high floor price or anything. Just what is a project that you think of that's got good art that is a little bit underrated in sense of just subjective art?
Yeah, so that's a tough one. So I actually separate PFP projects and digital art. So on the digital art side, I collect Xcopy, Beeple, I want to collect Tyler Hobbs, and so on. So that's one side of the equation. The other side for me, PFP projects don't always need to be about the art. And 99% of the time they're not. So I'm more looking in that respect as it's sort of an angel investment. So I'm investing in a company, a story behind it. The art needs to be passable because I know that can be improved. I really can't think of any. Look, I've fallen in love with my Bored Ape. Of course, I've got a big picture of him right up here that you can't actually see. But how much that relates to the price of it, who knows? I'm sure there is a big impact there. But from day one, I really did like the Bored Apes.
Yep.
I'm not going to say it's art. It's a cool monkey picture. I think there were a few at the time. I would have to go back through my OpenSea to see if there's anything that I really thought was good. I liked I'm a Degen, but
yep.
Voids were the ones that I was talking about there. But no, nothing really stands out. Let's hear your one.
Well, the one that came to mind first, but then I thought of a second one. But the one that I would say for me that's underrated, and again, I'm not talking about the project's execution or anything like that, but Animetas. I don't know if you heard of Animetas that launched in 2021.
I think so.
Pixel-based sort of artwork, but the sort of the diversity of characters and the art on Animetas, to me, I still have two. And I love them. Like I genuinely love the two that I have, and I could have sold them, a while ago. And I'm just writing it out, and I got to say it's actually just because I like the look of them. But the other one that I think that is probably definitely not as much under the radar, and Animetas was hot for a bit, and I remember actually Pranksy came in and did a massive sweep and had some big sales at the top end of town. I think it might have even been earlier this year in January or February. But the other one that I think has got just tremendous art is Cyberbrokers. Like the quality of Cyberbrokers art is really, really next level. But yeah.
So I'm just looking through my OpenSea, and personally, I think I seem to click more with 3D projects, and I know a lot of people don't like 3D projects. So, of course, I'm a fan of CloneX, Akutars as well. I remember at the stage when they first come out, I'm looking at them now, NF Tokers, I thought looked pretty cool. The Seekers, I think all right. And then you've got the Cross. So, Fuckrender did his own crystals and then characters as well. I really like the crystals, but can you call that a PFP? But yeah, so, and I know you don't like them, but I do like Mutants. But yeah, it's a hard one because I'm not buying these for the art. I'm buying them for what I feel is a future utility and the potential that they could be something more. I wouldn't say NF Teams characters, like the teams, are great art. I think our players look fantastic, and once you see others, I keep alluding to stuff. We've got humans plus more. I think people will be impressed. But again, it's not art. They're very cool 3D characters, and it's more about what they'll eventually be able to do. So I'm looking through my visitors of I'm a Degen. Voids were cool. Vugu, I thought was cool.
Yep.
That was a really big one as well. But yeah, I'm not here for the art, to be honest, in the PFP space. I'm in the NFT space, yes, but that's a completely separate thing.
Yeah, I mean, I resonate with that statement, but I also think it helps when you have something that's aesthetically pleasing. But what is aesthetically pleasing to someone is different to someone else. So, correct. But shout out to the Mutants. I am not a mutant hater. I just think it's quite ironical that when Oddities come out, all the mutants said, "How terrible's the art?"
That was and then different class. Come on,
like, come on, yeah. Pot calling the kettle black there, but
we really should get an art critic on one day that has no idea about the NFT space and just get him to see these for the first time and try to give us a score on their artistic talent or appeal or so on.
Well, I'm sure that we do have many traditional art critics that listen to the Ape and Bird show, so reach out and send us a DM. All right, we should wrap up. What, have we got anything else to cover off before we wrap up?
No, I was going to quickly mention that CloneX had a tweet.
Tell us about it.
I didn't. All I saw. So I have Twitter off my phone now to try to not always be on it 24/7. But then instead, I try to get my news through OpenSea sales volume. So I saw a little CloneX pump, and I'm like, of course, now I've got to go to my desktop computer in the office to see what they announced. And then it was a short video showing, I think you're on a train going towards some world or whatever, and then there's sort of a cloning thing. So the talk is that it looks like, of course, Clone X, you're going to be able to clone your Clone X's. That scares me a little bit. I don't think we need more supply. There's 20,000 Clone X's. Nike's been on a run of selling as many NFTs to Clone X holders as they can. I now hold 50 assets in that Clone X family through all their, not only airdrops, but all their shirts, jumpers, shoes, and so on. So this will be interesting. Hopefully it is not an NFT. Hopefully, I don't know what it could be, but it was interesting to see. So more to come over the next few weeks. And going back to that whole storytelling thing, they seem to be sort of pretty good at being able to string people along and get their storylines going as well. So from a business perspective, it'll be interesting to watch what they do.
Absolutely. Well, it was good to have you back in the chair. Welcome back again. I think it started out very loose this week, the show, but I think hopefully people made it this far. Yeah, if you did, congratulations. And I'm going to end with, if you haven't bought a ticket yet, you'll have your opportunity tomorrow, Friday at 12 p.m. if you weren't on the pre-register list. NFTfest.com.au. We would love to see you there. Please check out the website too. And that's all from me this week.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see if your project mints out. So
it does feel like a project. It does feel like a project mint, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, we'll hear more next week. Hopefully, complete sellout, and then we'll hear maybe about the extra speakers.
Yeah. We might have a few more next week. We might have a bit of alpha for our listeners, I'd say.
Awesome. All right. Until then, we'll see you next week.
Catch you later.